right. Looks like we've already got 7 people in here taking a look, watching us. This is Eric here with Investor Central Club. We've got Max. You guys know him as Trades and Gains or Unusual Markets, depending on what form of media you're following him. We are doing. We're going to do a little bit of an extra live stream today. I know we usually do this on Wednesdays, but we've been feeling the love recently, and we want to make sure that we reward you guys for all that extra engagement. So we're going to jump in here and talk about a couple things coming up. We've got some earnings that are showing up over the next couple hours and the next couple days. I know it's not exactly the biggest earnings week, but we do have GameStop coming up after hours today. I'm going to talk about Dave and Buster's because of something that we had in the past. We have Chewy in the morning, and then we got Oracle tomorrow after close. We also got Adobe and Restoration Hardware coming up on Thursday after close. So we want to take a quick moment and chat about that with you guys. Before we even jump into those things, though, we do want to talk a little bit about some of the awesome profits that we've been seeing here when it comes down to our Discord. We most recently had a few call outs, the ones for Intel in my channel and in Max's channel. We called out some unusual flow for Intel coming up, and we already are seeing around 70% for those in just a matter of days. We also had a Stacks AI call out for MRK, and we're already seeing people taking their profits for that, and as well as ARKK, Kathy Wood's fund as well. We also will talk a little bit. We are doing a 1K challenge in our Discord, in our Stack software. So if you guys are following us, you do have a chance to follow along with that. We're in Wolf, WULF, and we're also in Puts for NU. All due to unusual call flow that we're noticing in our Stack software. So again, if you guys are following us, if you're in here right now as well, go ahead and comment Stacks. If you're in our 1K challenge and you're following along with that, go ahead and comment 1K for me. I just want to get an idea of what's going on with you guys, and as always, engage in the chats. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. If you haven't hit that notification bell, it's awesome because I just got it myself when we go live on these situations on these days where Max and I might have a little bit extra time. You'll get that notification and be able to jump in onto these live streams. We're trying to do it before market close, which is important because if there are any nice positions to get into, maybe some last minute prints that are showing up in the flow, you might be able to get into those, and sometimes they tend to be some big hitters. And one of the big ones that we want to talk about too was our call out for Lululemon just last week. We saw some very unusual short-term flow for Lululemon, way out of the money right before their earnings. And I want to point out, Lululemon actually beat both of their earnings numbers. Both revenue and earnings were both a beat. However, the stock dumped afterwards due to a lot of this negative news about tariffs and forward guidance. And you'll see how the stock dropped quite significantly. We saw some of our positions that were an entry around $1.30 shoot up to over $20 in this case. So it was $135 per contract. It did drop the day after, went as low as 80 cents, so $80 per contract. And you could have seen that shoot up past $2,000 per contract, so $20 per share. Some people got out with some massive gains there. So obviously that's why we're doing these shows. We're trying to make sure that you guys can catch, right along the wave. You don't have to be a huge whale. You don't even necessarily have to have a huge account to start off with. We're trying to find those, high probability, lower risk type of positions that can help you make multiple gains on that type of entry. And so, yeah, let's turn it over to Max real quick, get a little bit of idea what's going on in the markets, and then we're going to jump right into earnings and take a look as to what's coming up in these upcoming days.
Yeah, so today is a pretty lukewarm day in the market. Let me go ahead and pull up our forecast on what's going on with today. For the most part, like Eric said, it's really a light earnings week, with not a lot of big moves being made on the options side of things. People are more so kind of playing the wait and see game, like we kind of always do. Currently, Dow Jones is flat. The S&P is up 0.2%, and the Nasdaq's currently up to 0.2% as well. Boeing, uh, it looks like rising orders came into play, but it also dropped about 2%. It delivered more than 45 jets last month. Comes in ahead of the Paris Air Show, and they're up 25%. Really, the big thing we're looking for is CPI. I'm looking at is CPI for tomorrow. With that, it's going to be a huge catalyst of why we could be seeing so many aggressive put positions over the last week or so. It's also going to play a huge factor going into our June Fed decision as well, because these are the prints that are going to really matter. Really, outside of that, not much has happened in the market today from a news standpoint. We have some random tickers that have come in. JM Smucker, for example, it sunk on a disappointing outlook, SJM. We had IBM. But again, as I warned all of you, IBM is going to be one of the pioneers of quantum computing. And ironically enough, at 8:43, IBM rose today because of quantum computing step forward. It's building the world's first large scale quantum computer called Starling, capable of operating without errors. So as I mentioned before, these are the types of companies where you'll see a significant return over the next 5 years, because they will build the foundation and kind of like the Northern Star that people are going to strive for when it comes to quantum computing moving forward. But yeah, other than that, we'll probably have some more news tomorrow after we get CPI in the morning. I think we're expecting 2.9% year over year there, which wouldn't be a change from our last print. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to drop at 8:30 in the morning. So we should see a nice move at 8:30 a.m. EST tomorrow.
Very good, very good. Yes, keep an eye out. CPI, you got to keep in mind, a lot of these positions that we're seeing will react, to that CPI print, whether it comes out hot or not. People are expecting that the Fed will eventually make rate cuts, but they are obviously holding off due to the state of the economy. They don't want inflation to come back and bite them in the butt again. But it is something that has been called for by a lot of people, especially the president wanting those rate cuts. But making sure that we have stable employment is the main thing, and stable prices are what the Fed is focused upon. There also has been quite a bit of rumors about how Jerome Powell may resign and things like that, but I feel like those are really just rumors that are floating around. He knows that
Yeah.
he's got a very important job, and the pressure from the political side of things is more so just noise at this point. He's said that he's not going to step down due to that type of pressure. So, um, if he does and things like that, that would be considered some sort of rug pull at this point, because he has already stated to the markets that he's not looking to leave. He wants to make sure that he can maintain and help this economy out the best that he knows how. Um, with that being said, let's jump into real quick. I just want to take a quick look at this week's flow scanner, because this is a very important tool that you guys can use to help yourself get a gauge as to what's going on with the markets. As of today, we're looking at a little bit of a bullish sentiment for NVIDIA. 48 million total calls to the 21 million total puts. Keep in mind, this is yesterday and today so far. Same with Tesla, almost a 2-to-1 ratio, but 42 mil to 25 mil. SPY slightly leaning toward that bearish side. Same with IWM. And it's always important to see if you can see where QQQ lies in there. And we'll notice that there hasn't been as much flow for QQQ. It's going to be, we've got some of the leveraged version of it down here, but I actually don't see it at all. Okay, so that's important to take a look at. They are betting on SPY and IWM. Oh, sorry, totally missed it right here. QQQ. Never mind. But QQQ is the only one that's leaning slightly bullish comparatively to the other ones. It's always nice to go in here if we can go ahead and filter the range, make it equal to just today, just to see how that would change things up. That looks like IWM goes slightly more bullish, SPY becomes much more bearish. You can't imagine right now, while we're sitting at that 6,000 level for SPX or 600 for SPY, that people are expecting that to be a little bit more of a resistance.
A lot of times we'll give you an indicator of where the market makers are essentially seeing this go.
Very good, exactly. Another one I want to point out, what I love to do in here is take a look at where the total puts are zero. So SLV having that 6 million to the zero puts, that's extremely bullish. We also have UNH. We did notice also, I believe, in our insider trades. We'll go click on that, insider trades. Oh, let me make sure this is reset for of all time. UNH, we did see a little bit of selling, but there was some buying a little bit back in the last month. Let me double check. I remember seeing, I saw Andy post about UNH being fairly bullish in terms of the insiders. We do see a little bit of selling, but look at that selling. 8K, 34K, 48K. So keep in mind, the size of the buying and selling is very important to take a look at. Look at the president and CFO buying $5 million, and this lady, Kristen Gill, buying $1 million of UNH stock. So those are a little bit, you got to weigh it in terms of the premiums, in terms of how much money is being actually spent. But, with the dip of UNH as well, we did have a Stacks AI call out where they, we saw some unusual purchasing at that dip, 515. When a bunch of bad news came out, you saw them immediately snatch it up, and you can imagine right now it's already trading higher from when it dropped like a rock. So back to our flow scanner real quick. SLV, ASML, Oracle. All right, that's important because we got that coming up very soon. FSLR. I like to use this to get a gauge and to see whether or not I also should be staying in some of those positions too. FSLR had a Stacks AI call out, and they're still buying for it, and they've got some time, so it's definitely something I would consider staying in if I could. We've got some of this as well when the total calls are at zero. Snow and XLF, so they're expecting the financial sector to struggle a little bit, as well as Snow. One of the few tech names I can see on here that it is a little bit more bearish. JP Morgan, a little bit more bearish. ARKK, yes, we had a call out. I know a lot of people already made about 60-70% on that, and right now it's starting to lean a little bit more bearish afterwards. But again, keep an eye out for these premiums. That's what this flow scanner is for, to help you gauge what the call to put flow ratio is, and to get an idea of what is being expected in the upcoming weeks and upcoming months. KView Maro, right? Bitcoin miner. Bitcoin hit 110,000 just recently, and so you'll definitely see these Bitcoin type names starting to see a lot more call flow as well. Disney, EA, EIX, EWY, SAP, GME. Okay, here's that GME. I'll say $1 million isn't that much, comparatively, especially with those bigger names. But we'll take a little bit of a peek into that. Let's do that real quick. If I go ahead and click on GME, we're going to take a look as to what's going on with it right now. As of today, we only had one sell of these calls at the $40 strike, with an expiration for this Friday. But the one I want to point out is that 1.08 million that we just saw. For next week, Friday, we got a strike of 35. And I want to point out how we see these two being the exact same time frame. Yesterday at 12:38, which is coming close to the market close. Keep in mind, this is I'm on the West Coast over here, so market closes at 1. And 12:38, two of these come in. You got a buy of the calls and a sell. And what that means is they're buying, meaning that they want the price to go above 35. And they very likely here, and you'll notice the details, exact same number as well. They sold the calls for the same expiration date, but for the 50. So they're expecting that GameStop's going to shoot up past 35, but not quite hit 50 and not quite get past 50. So, would not be
Hmm.
surprised. See GameStop open up around 40, 45 type of range. What they're doing is they're making this position a little bit cheaper for themselves. They're purchasing out $1.20, selling for 41 cents. Therefore, each position's costing them just under 80 cents per contract, and that's their expectation. Gives you that target range of where GameStop very likely could hit. And again, we'll check right after the market closes and see what happens. Keep in mind that we won't know for certain until tomorrow morning once the market does open. But mark my words, I would not be surprised to see GameStop shoot up past 35 due to their news and their earnings, and right below 50 would be the top of that move, is what they're saying over here. Okay. Any input, Max?
Yeah, so one thing you can kind of look at is when it comes to people starting to sell puts and sell calls, you can kind of find that as, for example, we saw like a SPY wall get built on call or put selling. And one thing to take away from this is it's a premium selling strategy. So it's basically like in this example, 568s came in. Traders are basically betting that SPY is going to stay well above that 568 level, and that's why they're willing to sell those puts. And mind you, SPY was trading around 602 when these hit. So you can kind of look at that as like institutional support, or in this case with GME, we can look at $50 as that institutional resistance point or that psychological resistance point that they don't expect it to go above. A lot of times when people start selling calls, at that point they're looking to protect capital in a sense. As you can see here, Eric's pulling up my analysis on those puts that were being sold for SPY as well. But yeah, very much so. Use like just because you can use selling options just as much as you use the scanner to find buys, because with selling it'll give you a better picture of like where the psychological and institutional support and resistance of these contracts are, and a lot of times it can help you with making that like giving you that extra confirmation and making that decision with a little more confidence behind it as well. So definitely be aware of where they're selling the most puts, where they're selling the most calls, and kind of dial that in as a range, because from there you can kind of look at, okay, well, where has the stock been moving or where has it been chopping? And what ranges do I need to look for where some strong accumulation may have happened? Or where was the last place it may have accumulated and broke out from or dropped from? So it's just taking all of those factors. And again, that's why you don't use options flow software as your Bible in some sense. It's a tool to help you give confirmation for theses or ideas that you may have about a chart. And that's the best way to use it. If you already have an idea, then go follow the guy who just put $2.3 million in calls. Because I can tell you right now, he doesn't want to lose $2.3 million on those calls, or on those puts, whatever the case may be. So just make sure you always understand what you're trading, and most importantly, why you're trading it. If it's because some guy with 60,000 followers on Twitter put it out there, that's not a great validation, because you don't know why they took it. You could be exit liquidity. So please, please, please always have a game plan and stick to it. And even if it's a loss, because you'll learn more from that than you will following someone blindly and taking a loss, because then you can at least understand why that may have occurred.
Very good. Yeah, I agree with that. First off, I want to make sure that you guys understand, if you are in our Stack software, we do have a lot of these channels that are offered to you guys, the videos that we post. But the most important one I would say out of all this, aside from our main chat, is Trades and Gains Trades, which is Max over here. What he does on a daily basis, he takes some of these, the analysis of what's being shown on the charts or shown in our flow software, and he gives you an interpretation as to what he sees. And this one, for example, the SPY put sellers, gives you an idea of what's going on, what they're getting in at, what their expiration is. and gives you an explanation and context as to what to expect with that type of trade. Now, keep in mind, if any of us had a crystal ball and were able to predict stuff, it would be a 100% hit rate. Nobody's got a 100% hit rate. If they tell you that, they're lying. At the end of the day, everything is a probability type of trade. You have to understand that in this situation, with this flow software, with the things that we see and our analysis of stuff, it increases the probability of us making money. And you got to make sure you always have your risk management in place. Once you lose out on your own premium, it is extremely hard for you to get it back. So, do not go all in. Do not YOLO yourself into things. Be careful with FOMO. It is a situation where, not only are we trying to show you guys what's going on with these things, but we want to teach you guys from our own experiences. And you'll also understand with experienced traders, there is a lot of this understanding that, hey, the risk management and the psychology of trading is just as important as your trading plan, because we've all been there where we throw a plan out the window because the emotions of fear or greed overtake your decision making skills, and you either get out early or you get in too heavy on a situation because you're on tilt or because you're in a bad emotional state, and leading to bigger and bigger losses in that situation. So what's extremely beneficial about Max's channel here is, as well as, he's going to point out things such as the unusual trades. On my what I like to do on my side is I like to focus on Stacks AI because I do the back testing for that. But I'll also, anytime I see something important or something that is worth taking a look at from unusual trades and from what Max has seen as well, I'll make sure to shout that out as well in my channel and in the main channel as well. If you are looking for my channel is only available through our Discord subscription, but I will do my best to try to post things into the main chat as well for those who are only on the Stack subscription. All right, with that also being said, Max had a call out in here. I'm not going to scroll all the way back to it, but Max also had a call out for some unusual meta positions. I want to talk about this because I noticed it as well. Just earlier last week, we had Meta with a bunch of these calls for August, and a lot of big money calls as well, where they're aiming for Meta to go a bit higher. Okay, I think it was this one. Let me click. So I like to click on the unusual and double check. So this was the one here, 820. Let me double check. There's also here 919, 750, and also let me find the other one. I think it was 725 earlier last week.
Yeah, I'm looking for that post right now.
We talked about this last week in our live stream as well, where something's brewing with Meta. That's the end point that I want to make. Something's going on with Meta. And you also see over here on the dark pool, look at that. Just yesterday, we got hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into Meta. Look at that. Mm-hmm. If I combined all that, that's what? Couple bill? Let's see, one. That's at least two, three. $3.5 billion probably just dropped right into Meta in the last day and a half, right? So that's also conviction, because not only does this money push that price up because there's more money in the pot, but at the end of the day, you got to also take a look at some of these purchases, okay, for Meta. This is the one. I think I got in on a small position on this one. It's down right now, but I got to double check as we started this stream. I believe Meta's now above 700, so it's definitely at least made its way back. 620, 725. Yes, it's a smaller position, but they're expecting Meta to go up. So you come back to this stream in the next couple days, next couple weeks, I would not be surprised to see Meta touching that 720, 725 price range, or even possibly higher, especially with all this flow coming in here. Okay, guys, so keep an eye out for that.
And mind you, you posted news about it earlier. Mm-hmm. for $15 billion for a Scale AI stake.
Yep.
So you got to understand, like, this is another Instagram. This is just another way for Meta to improve their offering, especially behind their AI efforts right now.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely be understanding of that. He, like, these are some balling kids, like 28-year-old CEO, 30-year-old CEO. Their funding is at $1.6 billion. Um, like it's a big, this could be a big opportunity, and this could propel Meta past a lot of its competition. But again, this is going to be another 12 to 18 month bottom line impact that we could see here. It's going to take some time for those profits in this position to start to quote unquote pay off. But it definitely makes sense behind some of these prints when you look at Meta from the beginning of the month even to the 10th. A lot of these are seem a little ridiculous. Like our top buy this month is for 25 million for the 720 calls due December 18th of 2026. Mind you, it is a $126.60 average that this person shelled out. So again, this is an opportunity and an example of you don't have $1,200 or $12,000 to throw at a contract. Great, go a little closer into date and further out on the expiration for something you can't afford. This is definitely one of those long-term momentum plays, though. So be definitely on the lookout for what happens with our Scale AI stake, because that is going to play a huge factor into some dark pool buys and institutional moves in the background.
Yep, exactly. I've got Meta's chart coming up over here. We did notice them talking about the Scale AI stake, but you'll notice here took a sharp dip during all that tariff talk and everything, bounced right back up. In case of if you haven't seen when I do post, or I like to put this little profit and stop loss type of little long position type of thing on our trading view, just to get an idea, because over here this is let's see, July. Oops, sorry, that went too far. That's the position, the short term position. So they've got only that much time for it to move up to this 725, and that's just for them to if it goes right to that top right corner, they're technically going to lose out on money. They're going to lose out $5 per contract. So it's got to go up past that, or it's got to make a sharp move up in that range before the end of that time if that position's going to make money. So keep that in mind as well. But again, we are, especially if you look at today's candle right here, that candle is showing a giant wick on the bottom pushing up toward the top. So I would not be surprised over the course of the next couple days up to the end of this week to see us break above this for $704, $705 range. I could expect us to see a little bit higher for Meta, especially with all that dark pool flow that just came in yesterday. Another one I want to make sure we go over this was GameStop, just because, again, I know it's a little out of order. GameStop, one of the things I want to talk about is during the great meme craze of GameStop back when we had this giant short squeeze. You may have heard about it. Roaring Kitty, a YouTuber, went on Reddit and posted about how there were a massive amount of shorts piled in against GameStop. But he had his own thesis of how GameStop as a retailer, especially even with the closing, with everything closing due to the lockdowns and everything like that, people are still playing video games. People are still buying their games, and it's still a place that was making some money. And so what ended up happening with it was it shot up. A lot of the shorts got squeezed out. That's why you see it shoot up all the way up here. Keep in mind this was before they'd had their splits as well, and so this shot up to over $300 per share. But the thing about short squeezes is they're very short-lived. They get shorted again near the top. It dropped very significantly, and now we've seen it kind of just bouncing back and forth between in these ranges. One of the theses against GameStop is that there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes where big institutions are able to borrow more shares than a company actually owns, or more shares than are actually offered out to the public. And when that happens and they short all of those stocks, it creates all this immense upward pressure when they do have to get out, because then they're going to be battling each other for those shares. Um, I have my own little belief and theory about all of this. Part of it was, maybe it was, in the news and things like that. While it was something that pushed out some of these institutions that were short on GameStop, I do believe institutions are ultimately the big winners of these either way. They did use the public for liquidity. A lot of people started to learn more about the stock market in that time, but that also brought a large influx of money into the markets. And you can imagine with these big institutions, they're the sharks. You just have a bunch of these new little goldfish out in the sea that are going to get eaten up. And the thing about options, especially if you're new, you got to make sure you understand what you're doing. I've heard stories from people where they, got into a GameStop option position, made a ton of money, but never sold, or got into a position, didn't understand what to do with those, and ended up losing their money as well. So be very careful with it, because again, with these very violent moves, things like IV crush, people didn't quite understand that. I think that was the first time I saw IV jump as high as 5, 6, or 700% for options for GameStop, where people were buying the furthest strike out of the money for the week of. When GameStop was trading at $100, people were buying the $800 calls, expecting that they're going to make money on that. And while you could, and while some people actually did, it is a situation where you have to understand your risk and you have to understand how the game is being played. But again, I do believe that there is still stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't believe we're going to see as crazy of a push like this at this point. There's a lot of talk about like ETFs being brought out, and they have ways to short the ETF to cover their positions and things like that. It gets very complicated with the way that these markets are designed. But as of right now, with the positions that we're seeing in the flow for stacks, right now with this, you've got this little chop, you've got kind of a base that's already formed over the last couple of days. Would not be surprised to see us push past that 35 position, and somewhere in between that to our 50 range is what we would expect right after close today, and going into this upcoming week. So that's just what Stacks is predicting. It's what the charts say. There's a solid chance that can happen as well. We've already peaked up above previous resistances as well, and there is a fair amount of liquidity with that big push down, big spike and push down on this dead cat bounce that happened back in 2024. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I didn't zoom out enough for you. There we go. The giant spike that we had back in 21, in January and February of 2021. Let's see. Yes, I just like the stock, Dylan. Yep, exactly. Roaring Kitty.
And mind you, that whale position is currently down 16% from its entry.
Yeah.
So I caught it at 118 and it's currently at 98.
Yeah.
So, but volume is at 5K. Open interest is still at 44K. So that OI will at least give you some hope. But definitely keep your eyes peeled for OI changes, because that is the first sign that you're about to get IV crushed.
Yeah. Yeah. Be very careful with that. If you guys are still in our chat, still listening in on our live stream, go ahead and give me some signs of life. Comment ICC for me so I know you guys are still in here listening. Give us a like. That way, we're just trying to help our algorithm out, trying to make sure that Stacks and ICC get sent out to the masses, so more people come and take a look as to what we're trying to show you guys here. Next that I've got for you guys, let's jump right into my big one is Oracle that I've noticed, ORCL. I know a couple earnings ago I got into some calls on Oracle and made a nice little profit off of it. I got to look back as to what exactly it was. But the one that came in yesterday that was interesting. So what I'm looking for here, I want to point out to you guys, is these expiration dates. Okay, Yes, they're selling calls, but that's still right. That could be them getting out of a position or possibly finding a spread for themselves. But these 620, 620, 620, everything's for 620. So these are all earnings plays that have just come in since yesterday. 500K, 200K, 800K, 300K, 700K, 1.16 million. Okay, that's the one that we want to keep an eye out. $175, slightly in the money, but big money. So, what you got to understand is when they purchase out the money, those are expecting very quick, heavy moves. When they're buying in the money, these are positions that are going to be a little bit more risk managed. Okay, they understand that price very likely might go up, but it's not going to make that volatile, quick, spike. They call it, the green dildo, the green Hulk dick going up. That in the money position is more so of a position where you got to understand they expect it to go up. They expect, and here's the thing with that $8 position, this technically needs to go to 183. 183, this is 890. 183.90 for this to be a break even position by end of next Friday. Okay? So, you know, you got to keep those things in mind. Understand what break even means on these options positions. And if they are buying in the money, it's more of like a slow grind type of move. Not necessarily the volatile out of the money positions are expecting. Okay. So, like, for example, this 180 for next Friday, 650, this has to go to 186 for this guy to break even by that time. And there's the thing is, if this doesn't go past that price and go higher and higher and higher, this if it doesn't get past 180, this $6.50 goes to zero, guys. And so that's what we're telling you guys about these positions is you got to realize what type of risk are they willing to take, right? And yes, we've always heard, the market, the stock market, the options market is a casino, especially due to the fact that, people don't understand why these massive percentage gains happen. And the only place they've seen it before is at the casino. But these positions that they're getting in are highly calculated. For you to get your company or your hedge fund to write off for you to go spend $500,000 on this type of position, you got to have your thesis and you got to have your knowledge and have your ear to the door, understanding what the insiders are saying, what the possible reports are going to be. Is Oracle going to report some sort of new venture, some sort of new profit making strategy? Are they going to have something in terms of a new partnership? What's going on? Is their guidance going to come out good? A lot of these people probably have ins with those people that are creating those reports. And that's why, especially when you see all these coming in at the same time, it kind of raises our eyebrows. And that's where we're going to shout these out and let you guys know, hey, something with Oracle. If I'm going to bet on Oracle for earnings this week, I'm expecting to go bullish. But the thing here too is it's not like that Lululemon put position. This bullishness is it's fairly muted compared to a lot of the earnings types of moves that we will and have seen. I'm expecting it to go up. I don't expect it to go to 200 or plus. Maybe 190. This 200 position is the most risky one of all. $1.19 per contract. But if you take a look here, yeah, they're expecting a 12% move. That's the biggest one out of all of these. This would be the most likely to lose out if it doesn't really take that and shoot straight up from there. If it does go over 200, great. All of these are going to be very, very profitable. But where these strikes lie, show me that they're not expecting it to just shoot straight up, is what I'm saying. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? Anything you got to say, Max?
Yeah, so Oracle, this is very similar to, was it IBM that like randomly shot up for
Mm-hmm.
that earnings player? So this is a pivot strategy for Oracle. This is going from a shift from traditional software licensing to essentially their first full quarter of being a cloud data center play to a degree. Um, we're looking at some aggressive revenue at 15.6 billion. Again, cloud services growth is going to be a key point to watch. We saw cloud revenue grow 6.4% year over year last report. And the backlog is very strong. There's 130 billion currently sitting in their backlog for some data center plays as well. Data center expansion is going to be a key and momentum as well. I very much believe this could be another IBM situation where it's risky because they are changing, but with some of the bigger buys we've seen in calls, there's definitely some conviction that is being held by these companies. Like today, the only Oracle buy we saw was a 185 call, 1.3 million spent, 520 average, and that was at about 1236 today. And that was the big buy we've seen with Oracle so far. But yeah, just keep your eyes peeled for that conference call because that's where that price is going to get make or break, especially with their outlook and their new kind of outlook they're taking towards their business strategy moving forward.
Real quick, I just want to give Max a shout out. We're on stream right here, right now, guys. And if you guys are, oh, not the Discord, let's go into our stacks. Okay, I just checked off as he was talking unusual buys. We got all this Tesla flow that just came in. And you know what? Max, as he's on stream with me, just jumped into his chat, did a quick analysis for you. Trying to get this to where it was. And he just talked about the Tesla flow that just came in, guys. I don't know who else in this world is quicker than Max in terms of getting you guys the information as soon as it hits. If you appreciate him, if you love him and what he's doing for you, go ahead and comment TG for Trades and Gains in our chat right now. And you know, he's gonna keep doing this for you. That's why he's such a valuable part of our team here, guys. Tesla just hit the tape, and you guys are already getting the idea here of what exactly to do, what the premiums look like. Yes, these are fairly expensive contracts in a few of them, but you also have these unusual positions have, you know, fairly decent premiums that you might be able to get into at this point. And they're expecting, you know, October 17th of this year, 680, 690, a few 670, 660. They just jumped all into those guys. All right. So take a quick look at that if you're interested and if you're one of those people that likes to trade Tesla. On the other hand as well, I got a question here about VKTX. I saw that a moment ago. I know there was the unusual one. Let's just uncheck that. Yeah, we just got a bunch of flow here from this morning and just as we're closing today for January. VKTX, let me double check what exactly that is too.
Oh, it's okay. NVO, driven by commercial. Oh, so they're responsible for Wegovy and Ozempic.
Okay.
So makes sense. Novo further. Okay, so they're looking to expand their obesity pipeline, aka make more drugs for fat people. So that is why we're seeing that spike in today's session. Currently, it is up 5% on the day.
Yep.
So yeah, watch out. This could be, you know how these fat people operate, or these fat like companies essentially operate. Once they start to try to expand their offering and bring in more drugs to market, we see some very explosive movements within stocks like this. But also watch, make sure that you're watching for any news surrounding status updates, because that is when you could see a sell-off at this beautiful high point of 29.14 and see it start to accumulate back down at that $26 level, where we see a lot of prior day demand and prior day supply zones going at least 5 days out here. So I would look at 2609 as a solid accumulation level where we have seen this thing touch that level multiple times over the last since Wednesday, May 28th, Monday, June 2nd is when we first started to see accumulations and pop-offs from that zone on the 5 minute. And then today we got that nice little pop after their increasing fat deal uh, went live essentially.
I mean, I know if you've been following along with us, guys, this chart right here is that, market psychology right there. You got your blow off top, you got your dead cat bounce, and then you got it coming straight down into this despair zone. But what's going on right now is, I will point out, this inverse head and shoulders is very, it's a good looking pattern right here. And what they usually say is you go from the head to the shoulder line, and you take that as the expected move coming up of it. So there's a possibility that's going to jump up toward that $40 range if it plays accordingly to what this chart has to say. In terms of what Stacks is saying here, though, when we take a look at, they are aiming for that $60 strike. They do have these couple ones that are in the money for a little bit shorter term. So you definitely can see that they've got some conviction that this is going to be moving, fairly soon, if anything. We have the longer term expirations are for January of next year, but they are expecting this move to happen in the next 6 months or so. So good point. Any other ones? We have Jaw here asking about the IWM prints that came in. And we did just have market close, so we'll take a peek over at GameStop in a little bit too. IWM, let's take a look. Yeah, we got some. Ooh, 7 mil in puts just came in, so we'll see about that. We got a lot of selling going on. I'm just going to filter out for our buys. Definitely right here, big chunk of them for next month. 3 mil, 1 mil, 1.5, 1.6 mil for IWM. 620, this one's very short term for next week, 1.2 mil right here. But then we did just right after market close see this buy for next month, these puts for 7 mil. That's 30,000 contracts, which is pretty ridiculous. I like to take a look at the indices to get a gauge as to what's going on in the bigger picture. For me in particular, I've done my own analysis of my own trading, and I've noticed that when I trade SPY, IWM, QQQ, those indices, what's ended up happening with me is I'll see profits, but I tend to hold on a little bit too long with those, and they end up losing out. So I'm not, they're not my favorite to trade. Overall with these indices, I think I'm down a little bit overall. My trades are better for certain earnings predictions and for when I have to deal with things that I see in the unusual tape. Usually those are related to some sort of news that pops the stock off and things like that. Those are where my big money makers happen to be. I'm not a big lover of these ETF trades, even though I do understand they can make you a lot of money if you know what to do and you know when to get out. But for me, because there's so much stuff going on with it, just like here, yeah, I probably would have wanted to get into some calls for this, but then these puts that come in right after the close are going to spook me out, and I'll probably make the wrong decision in my own position, and either get out of this too early or look at it and try to get in on the other position and lose out in that manner. So but in terms of what I see, again, it is a little more mixed because you've got so much stuff going on the tape when it comes to things like IWM, SPY, and QQQ. But there is plenty of buying throughout the day. There was plenty of calls being purchased as well. I mean, but again, you got to interpret it the way that you, and there's a lot of short-term stuff that happens in these. And so indices, I've noticed indices tend to take out people's liquidity pretty quick and move in the other direction. So that's where I would warn you guys on these ones. Any input, Max?
No, GME earnings just came out.
Okay.
It's not great. It's not great. 732 million on revenue versus estimated 750 million. EPS came in at 17 cents versus 8 cents overall. So not a great showing. And now it's just kind of,
Didn't they buy a bunch of Bitcoin? They
yeah, but
bought
I don't know
Bitcoin
how to.
and then the stock price crashed afterwards. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. It's still a little bit early in terms of it, and I'm sure they have their earnings call. That could be maybe the catalyst, depending on what they have to say in terms of their guidance. But yeah, that position
100%.
with stacks, some of these I will tell you. After hours is great to look at. After hours sometimes will get your hopes up real high, and then you'll see a complete reversal during the morning of. So nothing's set in stone
Hmm.
until you book those profits, and especially with something like this that moves so has so much volatility in it, you really will not know until market open tomorrow. And there are situations where you'll see a bad report pushes price up, a great report pushes it down, or you'll see something, you'll see the opposite happen as soon as they get into their earnings call because of certain keywords that the person, the CEO or the reporter said. I remember there was a situation where some company basically said AI a certain number of times, and every time AI was mentioned, price went up higher. And there's a lot of hype that goes into it, but nothing will be certain until market does open. Yeah, we'll probably just see this chop around for a little bit. But here's the thing about it is we didn't see an immediate move right here. We kind of are, taking out liquidity on the lower side. We'll see if it pushes down further and further. I do believe there's also a lot of forces up against GameStop at the end of the day. But I will say, I still got a feeling that that stacks position very likely could still see decent profits once market does open. We'll have to keep an eye out to see what happens here.
Yeah, that overnight move is going to be key for this because it is tanking right now.
Yeah.
3% down in after hours currently.
Yep. And a lot of times too, I've noticed is the first move you see before or right as earnings and right as close happens, the first move is the liquidity grab before it goes the other direction. So right now it is headed down.
100%.
Oh, what else? If you guys are still in the chat, give me some things you guys want us to take a look at. If you're a Stacks user, let us know. Let us know what exactly it is that you've seen, any certain tickers you want an analysis on. As we do that, I want to jump into the 1K challenge that we're doing. So Max and I have a couple of guidelines that we have. Those of you that are following us using Stacks or in our Discord, we would always love your input. Make sure that you tag us or let us know if you notice a position that might be worth taking. That way, if we happen to miss something, I've got a infant at home. Max is always doing something, and he'll be watching the flow. But sometimes there's stuff that gets by us. But if you notice, something come out where millions of dollars are spent, or you see consecutive prints that maybe somehow we just overlooked, let us know. But just so you guys have an understanding, we've got a couple of rules for what we're looking for. In terms of stacks, we're looking for unusual prints. So we're going to start off, we're going to click off unusual. We're going to look for the buys. And the premiums that we're looking for are over that 250K. We will consider that if it's right over 200 as well sometimes. And as of right now, because it's a 1K challenge, we're trying to make sure that the premium that we're spending is under $1. So that way we have the ability to buy anywhere from 5 to 10 contracts at a time until we've built that portfolio to the point where we can take, bigger positions as we go on. So far, the two that we have are NU. You'll notice here, where were the, we had puts. I don't only see buys here.
While you pull this up, I gotta hop off, everybody. So I will be on live later tonight, probably doing some charting. So feel free to stop by, request some like profit analysis stuff.
No.
But yeah, other than that, I will see everybody for the daily market recap that I put out. But other than that, we have our closing bell show tomorrow, normally scheduled. We'll talk about CPI, some other macro stuff, and kind of what the outlook over the next month or so could look like based on that CPI print, because that's going to kind of set the table and the tone for our Fed meeting next month. But as always, it's great hanging out with y'all. Um, Catch me in the Discord if you're a part of it. Catch me on my channel on Stacks AI if you read it. Other than that, I'm on Twitter. I post snapshots and tidbits of what I find in a lot less context, but it's still just out there for you to use at your discretion. But yeah, I will catch you guys tomorrow in the next episode.
Thank you, Max.
All right, later, y'all.
Good to have you as always. See ya.
Of course.
All right. Here's what I was talking about. So I know NU here wasn't exactly an unusual print, but we had the short term out of the money, and so we made a judgment call for it as well. The puts for September of 2025, strike of $10. It was trading at about 12. It's dropped a couple of cents at this point. And we got in, I think, at 27 or 28 cents per share. Grabbed 10 of these. Okay. The combined purchase here was over 250K and was just such an unusual block of prints where we wanted to take and get in on that as well. The other one that we have is Wolf, WULF. Wolf, we saw these unusual calls over here. We also had this big block of them come in as well. 11.21, the $6, and also the $10. So we've got the $6 calls. We've got 5 of them. For what was our price basis? I got in at 78 cents. If you were quick and got in under that 70 cents, it did drop a little bit right after I got in, where you did have the opportunity. Both of these positions are up, but only up just a little bit. In terms of our entire portfolio, we are up a total of only like 5 or 6% at this point. But again, we're also looking to make sure we've got some time in these. Right now, we do not want to take the high risk of extremely short dated contracts, because again, if with $1,000, it's very quick to lose out on all of that premium. And as a result, have to, we don't want to have to buy back in and get, reload the account. We want to make sure we can let this grow steady and take these ones that have a little bit lower of risk when it comes down to our time frame. Especially when they are out of the money, we do not want to take a position that ends up losing out on that theta K extremely quickly. Couple of other ones, just to chat a little bit before I log off here. If you guys haven't taken a look at our Stacks AI back testing, we do that on a monthly basis. I'm doing my best to try to do it twice a month at this point. If you like Stacks AI, go ahead, comment that in our chat. If you've made some money off of it. ARKK this last week got us, I think, about 60-70% return. MRK, same idea. Google it struggled for a little bit, but just today it popped like crazy. Got some people that made some money off of that. SLV's been making a run recently, especially with people going a little bit more risk off, getting into gold and silver. SLV's definitely jumped a bit. That UNH position, they bought the dip. That one's looking real nice at this point. So the only thing about Stacks AI I will point out are some of these contracts do happen to be quite expensive. You've got this Carvana one that's going to cost you over $2,000 per contract. This LEU one that just came in, $2,800 per. So, one of the things that we've done an analysis of as well is, not all of these are going to need you to ride it all the way out. So if you can look for some shorter dated contracts. Our suggestion is to buy about 3 months out if possible. That way you have a little bit more of a wiggle room in terms of your time, and theta doesn't eat away as much. And find a strike where you can look for solid open interest and volume. That's the key. You don't want to go out there and purchase something that has no interest, has no volume, at the end of the day, when you have to get out of that position, it's going to be a very big bid-ask spread. Those are the things that you have to be careful of when it does come down to these. But in the case that you did get into this, where, for example, you get into this ARKK position, and yes, while this specific position made almost 60-70% return on it, maybe even a little bit more as of today. I got out yesterday at 66%. If you got shorter dated contracts, that's actually just going to be a bigger return when it does make that move. Obviously, you got to make sure you monitor your position. You're careful, careful with your risk management. When it comes to trading options, there's no such thing as a risk-free type of trade. So you have to make sure that you're careful with those if you can. That's really what I've got for you today. I really want to make sure that we get into Oracle before tomorrow, because tomorrow is the earnings comes out right after the close. We'll take a peek over as to what GameStop's done, but as of right now, it looks like that GameStop position, it is down just from that 30, right over 30. It's dropped $1. Fairly small type of a move when it comes down to it. But you will also see that their earnings technically was, their earnings was a hit, but their revenue was a miss, and missed just by 2%, and their earnings was a surprise by 112%. So they still do have their earnings call coming out later. There is a possibility we'll see it reverse, but only time is going to be able to tell for that. Couple of things before we log off. A reminder here, we do have our probability checks when you are getting into a position. Make sure that these are things that I like to say, give me more conviction, give me a higher probability of understanding that a position is going to go in my favor. If it's out of the money with a short expiration date, with a high premium position, or multiple purchases of that, multiple prints, continued buying. Stacks AI Confluence, anytime I see Stacks AI purchase and get into a position, it lays a foundation for me to understand that somebody knows something and is expecting some sort of move to come. And as well that dark pool equity buying. So you guys can understand with today's review and today's show that we had, the dark pool equity buying of Meta, I'm expecting Meta to make a move in due time. The high premium positions, not only in the options but also in the dark pool, and that out of the money short expiration. So for example, that Meta position as well, 720, which is $20 out the money, short expiration for next Friday. They've got less than 14 days left. So those are situations for you to keep an eye out and make sure that you understand the risk that these people are taking when it comes to getting into these options trades. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Let us know. help@investorcentralclub.com. It is a great way for you guys to get in contact with us if you're not a part of the Discord, or if you're not a part of the Stack software. Otherwise, if you are in those, you are always welcome to jump into the Discord. And go into our Stack support. You can go ahead and ask us questions in here. Let us know if there's anything that's not working, or if there's anything that you need help with. And if you can't get in there and there's something wrong with it, you can always email us. That's why we have the help@investorcentralclub.com. Let's see. Last but not least, we do have a code going on. If you go look into our description box below, we've got Max's Substack. Max has his own YouTube channel, Trades and Gains, as well. So if you want, go ahead and subscribe over there. That way you get and can stay on top of all the information we have to share for you guys. We do have a Stacks Beehive where we send out a newsletter on a weekly basis with some overviews and with some other things, terms of promotions and things like that. And also this code 130 for $30 for your first month of Stacks. You can go into our website right here, investorcentralclub.com/memberships. Go ahead and under your memberships, you can go ahead and sign up for our Stacks software, so you can get all of this stuff in real time. Well, with that being said, This is Eric here with Investor Central Club. We will be back here tomorrow at market close to do another closing bell. Max and I just decided today that we've been seeing the love from you guys, definitely getting getting a lot more responses, and wanted to do this show for you guys to get you additional information, especially before that GameStop earnings that we just saw today, and get you ready for tomorrow's as well. And again, you can make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. That's where you found us here. Hit that notification bell. That way you get a notification anytime that we do go live. We will try to do additional ones. I am going into my summer. I teach and I coach basketball, so I should have a little bit more time. We'll try to do a couple more of these on a weekly basis. All right. Have a great rest of your day, you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow, and happy trading.